This was me. I was fat, shy, and had like no confidence whatsoever. This is me now. I'm in good shape, I have way more confidence, and I get more attention from girls. In this video, I'm gonna show you my exact system that I followed to go from looking like 30% body fat to now 15% body fat, and get way faster results than it took me personally. Number one, find your reason why. For as long as I can remember, I have always been fat. I always also, wanted to get in shape, but just never knew how to do it. I was watching fitness content every single day of the week, just daydreaming of having a better physique than the one that I had currently. However, the problem was, right, that whenever I decided to do something about it, actually try and get in shape, I could eat better for about 2 weeks and, work out for 2 weeks as well. But then I just decided to quit. And this was a cycle that I was in for months and months at a time. I remember thinking to myself so many times, like, why is this happening to me? Why can't I just do the work that is necessary to actually get the results that I want? This is when everything started to click for me. I didn't have a strong reason why I wanted to change in the first place. At the time, right, like most of us, we want to get in shape just for the sake of getting in shape. But that is not a strong enough motivation, to stay consistent over a long enough time. I had to find deeper reasons why I wanted to change, not look good just for the sake of looking good. There had to be deeper reasons. So I took some time to think about this myself. And this was my actual reasons why. I wanted to be more confident. I wanted to get more attention from girls. And I wanted to be happy, with the way that my body looked. So, whenever I took my shirt off in public or whatever you can think of, I wanted to be proud of what I showed other people. Since this point on, it became so much easier for me to actually stay consistent with the goals that I had. Because, I had like a solid reason why I actually wanted to change in the first place. Besides, I just want to look good for the sake of looking good. Once you have real reasons, that are deep to you personally, that will completely change everything for you. Why I'm telling you this so specifically is because I want you to do the same work that I did myself. If you feel like you're struggling, especially with getting the motivation, to get in better shape, then ask yourself this question. Why do I want to change in the first place? And get deep with it. Just keep these reasons for yourselves, but be honest with yourself when you actually think about it. Once you figure out, the real reasons why you want to change, then this will become the motivation that you need, to actually get to work and get the results that you want. And not only that, it will be so much easier, because you actually have a goal in mind. You have something to work towards instead of just something vague as, oh, I just want to look good for the sake of looking good. Now, if you feel like you want my personal help with this, where I will guide you step by step along the way, to lose fat, but also get way more attractive in less time than it took me personally, just like in this picture right here, then click the first link in the description and watch that video right now. Number 2, clean up your eating environment. I would say personally that this is the most overlooked part when it comes to getting in shape, especially when you're first starting out. So imagine this, right? You just finished a workout or, gone for a walk. Deep down that you feel proud of yourself because, you actually done something good for your body. So you think to yourself, well, I did something good for my body, right? So obviously I need to reward myself. So you walk into your kitchen and you scout around your kitchen and like, so I need something to reward myself, and what could it be? The first thing you see when you walk into your kitchen is a bag of chips and a chocolate bar. So you can just imagine what's going to happen next, right? You think to yourself, well, I did finish some kind of workout, so I need to reward myself. Like a few pieces of chocolate and a few pieces of chips, right? They're not going to hurt me, right? In just a matter of time, if I know you well, because I did the same thing myself, for such a long time. If I saw a bag of chips or a chocolate bar whenever I was home, right? I didn't have any portion control whatsoever. I had to finish the whole bag of chips and eat the full chocolate bar as well. There was no other option. This was something I personally struggled with for months and months at a time. And this was also one of the main reasons, why my body looked like this for months, even though I tried, to eat better and actually exercise. But the main problem was that I just had a trash diet over and over and over. Before you start eating healthy, this is the first step that I want you to take, because this is so much more powerful than you think. You need to clean up your eating environment the first thing that you do. Simply just get rid of all the easy access snacks, that you can't resist yourself from eating. Think about this yourself. Why not have your home right? Work in your favor when you actually want to get in shape instead of working against you, by having these temptations all across the house, a bag of chocolate here or, chips there or a soda there or whatever you can think of. Doing this thing alone will put you on a great path to actually getting the results that you want. Just trust me when I say this, it's way more powerful than you think. It's pretty obvious when you actually think about it, right? How can you mess up on the way that you eat if you don't even have bad options around in your house to begin with? Like, there's no way for you to mess up if you just eliminate the bad options. So if you can't resist, having these bad foods, then you simply need to distance yourself away from them. And the best way to do that is by not having them in your house to begin with. So that way you cannot mess up even if you actually want to. Number 3, simplicity is key when it comes to food. As soon as people hear the words eating healthy, right, and this was me included as well, we just instantly assume that we need to create this massive meal plan, with different ingredients that are so much more healthy, to actually get the progress that we want. But that is far from the truth. It doesn't have to be that complicated whatsoever. In reality, what I have learned, for trying different ways to eat and, different diets, is that simplicity will always, and I mean always, be better than trying to make it complicated for yourself. Because through simplicity, that is how you get consistent. Just think about this to yourself. Just take a random situation in your life. The more complicated you have made it for yourself, right, it's going to be so much harder for you to actually complete the thing you want to do, right? Instead of trying to make it as simple as possible, then you just think to yourself like, oh, why didn't I just do it in this way? By making it simple, it just becomes so much clearer what you need to do. Now, what I personally did when it comes to food, that was a complete game changer, was that I stuck only to having whole foods. What this basically means, right, is basically no processed foods whatsoever, and just foods that are just as plain as possible, not in the taste, but in the way the ingredients are. You can't really mess with a chicken breast more than it's just a chicken breast, right? I mean, just be honest to yourself and think about this, right? Whenever you go to a grocery store, right, and you see a processed food that has like this big of an ingredient list, and you can't even pronounce half the things in there, right? You just have this gut feeling deep down that this stuff is not good for you, right? Now, to make it as convenient as possible for myself, and I recommend you to do the same, is just have a few ingredients that you rotate on a weekly basis. Let's say chicken, fish, ground beef, steak, or, whatever you can think of. And then you combine that with either rice or potatoes or some basic carb. This way you can create so many different recipes, but still use the same ingredients. Now, most of the time, whenever I'm cooking, because I don't know about you, but for me personally, right, I want to cook as little as possible, but have the most kind of food available. So what I personally do is just, make a massive stew so that I can have that in the fridge for like the next couple of days. So I don't have to cook, every single day, because that's when it becomes inconvenient. Now, when I cook this kind of stew, right, I just keep it as simple as possible. Just take whatever veggies that you like. For me personally, I usually use like onions, bell peppers, and mushrooms, right? You chop those up, add them into the pot, you stir them around for a bit, and then you add your protein of choice. Let's say you have ground beef or, chicken or fish or just whatever you like, right? It's no like strict rules with this. Just add your protein into the pot, stir it around, add your seasonings, and to get more volume out of the stew, then you just add either stock or, crushed can of tomatoes. Now, just let that stew cook for like 20 to 30 minutes, and then you have, food that is ready to eat for like the next couple of days. And I personally just pair that stew, with either boiled rice or, boiled potatoes or just something basic that has more volume. I want to remind you of this. Cooking, to actually get the results that you want, it doesn't have to be complicated like whatsoever. Just try to make it as convenient and simple for yourself as possible. And this is just the easiest way, hands down, to get the results that you want. And you can just repeat this process over and over and over with different ingredients. Remember, if you want my personal help, where I will guide you step by step along the way, to lose fat, but also get so much more attractive in less time than it took me personally, to look something like this, then click the first link in the description and watch that video. Number 4, improved eating plus exercise is the secret formula. Now, if you just focus on, improving the way that you eat, you will get good results. But come on, we're not here to just get good results, right? Once we combine the eating with having some kind of exercise, That's why we get great results instead of just getting good results. Now, when I talk about exercise specifically, right, what I mean by that is some kind of resistance training. What this basically means is, that you put your body under some kind of weight, some kind of resistance to actually improve your muscle growth. And just make your body look way better in the long run. Now, why resistance training is so important, combined with the way that you eat, is because if you just, focus on the way that you eat, you will lose fat, but you won't grow any muscle because you need to put your body under stress. By adding some kind of exercise, specifically resistance training, we can lose the fat. Meanwhile, we build muscle at the same time. Now, the most common ways when it comes to resistance training is either doing bodyweight exercises or going weightlifting at the gym. I much prefer the gym, so that's what I do personally. Now, when it comes to the gym, what I recommend most people to start with, and I did myself, is to go with 3 days a week. Let's say Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, to keep it simple. Now, when it comes to what kind of workout routine you should have, I recommend most people as well to start with push, pull, legs. And let me show you a picture of the routine so you know what I'm talking about. This is what the routine looks like. You can pause the video just to check it out. And you can copy this routine to get started. This hits pretty much all the muscles you need to get an attractive body. Now, I just want to give a disclaimer. When you're first starting out, right, don't put that much pressure, to follow the routine, to a T, but more so just that you get into the habit of showing up to the gym consistently, even to begin with. Because just think about this to yourself, right? If I give you the best workout routine that has ever existed in the world, but you can't even show up to the gym consistently to begin with, then it doesn't matter what exercises I give you, right? You're not even at the place to perform the exercises in the first place. So just keep it basic when you first start. Get into the habit of showing up to the gym, even if it's just like 10 to 15 minutes, but you do it consistently for those 3 days. That will make a massive difference in creating a routine that you can actually stick to. Ease yourself into it, learn the exercises properly, and do it with good form before you start, adding weight or whatever you can think of. This will reduce the amount of injuries you will have and maximize the gains that you will get because you actually hit the correct muscles with the exercises. Number 5, patience is the key to your success. I know you probably heard this like 100 times before, but one of the main reasons why we struggle to get in shape, I struggle with this and you probably do as well. Why we struggle to get in shape is because we don't have the patience to do this stuff long enough. We constantly scroll, on social media. We see a jacked guy over there, a shredded guy over there, someone who's super rich over there, and they have like 10 different supercars over there. We just get bombarded on a daily basis with all these good looking people and, rich people. So we think to ourselves like, I want to look like them, but as soon as possible. I don't want to wait like a couple of months or a couple of years. I want it today, or I'm going to just give up. Here's the harsh truth, right? I'm not going to sit here and, BS you straight to your face and say that, you will look great in just 1 to 2 months, because that is unrealistic. If you actually want to get a great looking body, it's going to take you years. However, you can get great progress to your body in just a couple of months. In just a matter of months, you will see a drastic change to yourself, not only to your body, but your mental health as well. Your face will be slimmer. You will get more confidence, you will get more attention, especially from girls. And the list goes on, just by taking care of your appearance and actually working out. Now, the problem that most people have with this is that they focus too much on the end result. They get discouraged that they need to do this for a long amount of time. Here's what I recommend you to do, and this is actually such a hack. You only focus on doing it 1 day at a time. This day, you just focus on eating better and exercising, and you don't really care about tomorrow until tomorrow happens. If you just repeat this, 1 day at a time throughout the weeks and months, the time will pass so much faster than you think. Just trust me when I say this. Once you copy this mindset for yourself of just focusing on 1 day at a time, focusing on eating better and exercising for that single day, this will make a drastic improvement to your consistency. This is so underrated, when it comes to actually achieving something over a long period of time. If you focus on just doing the daily small things, eventually, right, the time will have passed and you will look drastically better. Now, if you feel like you want my personal help with this, where we work together to help you lose fat, but also get way more attractive, and less time than it took me personally, by learning through my mistakes, then click the first link in the description and watch that video right now.